Oh, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today I have with me Albert Polanco. Now, Albert is with Metamango, and this is an awesome gentleman. Best-selling author and founder of Metamango. He's helped launch several multi-million-dollar Web3 launches in the NFT space. He supported W3 brands with a full-service marketing agency that was also in the Web3 space. So he's launched several sold-out NFT projects to include independent artists and celebrity launches. So this is a gentleman that really knows agency work, Web3, NFT, and I'm glad to have today Albert Polanco. Albert, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I really appreciate you bringing me on today.
I'm really glad that you were willing to come on my show because I'm excited to have worked with you and meet you and talk with you. And I think you have a lot to share in this space, especially in the Web3 NFT, because everybody's wondering what an NFT is. But before we get to that, tell us, how did you end up being a marketing agency in Web3? I mean, I just learned about Web3 and NFTs, but sounds like you've got so much experience and insight. Share with us how you got there.
Well, I've been in marketing for over 20 years. I've done every kind of marketing you can think of, from SEO to paid advertisements, social media marketing, video production, video marketing, every aspect of marketing. And when Web3 came into, onto my radar, Web3, and it was actually NFTs that I was in crypto since like 2014. But NFTs really came on my radar in like 2017, 2018.
Okay.
And as things started to ramp up, I noticed that Web3 brands and specifically NFT projects, they didn't have any kind of marketing. It was like, they didn't know what they were doing. They had these communities that they were building organically.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know how to serve them. And then they didn't know how to get new customers, right? So an NFT project would blow up with all this hype, and then it would fizzle out because they didn't know how to acquire and retain and bring in new customers and have a viable product. And so I just saw a giant need. I saw a giant gap. Nobody in the marketing space had any idea what NFTs were or Web3 is. They don't understand the technology, and you can't apply traditional old school marketing without having that knowledge, right? You need both sets of knowledge. You need the Web3 side. You have to understand the community aspect. You have to understand the technology side. And then you have to understand marketing and how do you shift? How does marketing evolve when it becomes community based, when the community is part owners of the product that you're selling, right? It's very different from like top down traditional old school marketing. And so I just saw a huge need, and I aligned myself with people who are doing this kind of work. I worked with another agency that was really successful. That's where a lot of the things that I got started in, how it happened for me. And then I started my own thing, which was Metamango.
So when you started your own thing, Metamango is how I met you. It seems to me you're absolutely right. Traditional marketing and what's happening today in decentralization and community-based and all the new applications, if you don't understand both sides, it's hard to pivot, it's hard to make the bridge. And that's some of the reasons for what motivated me to go into the podcast side of this, to make sure everybody's aware of what's happening, how it's happening, and the impact of it all. So with that said, and now that you had grown into that, you worked on the NFT side, and I understand some of those projects are kind of difficult at that point. I've heard a little bit about that. So in today's marketplace, what do you see happening that you wish happened sooner, or it would be more of a quick pick-me-up to move us forward? What do you think is missing now, and what do we now have in place?
Well, what I was really advocating for is, this was all a wave, right? So the NFT space was flooded with all this money. These projects were being founded by artists, by creatives. They're bringing their vision to life, but they had no business acumen. They had no business sense. They had no idea about systems and business. You're putting millions of dollars in the hands of people who don't know what to do with it. Right? They're like, oh, we made millions of dollars, but we don't know how to run an organization. We've never had this kind of money, right? And so a lot of these projects blew through the money. They didn't know what to do with the money. They got bamboozled by a lot of people in the space who kind of weaseled their way in and talked a big talk and said they could do a lot of things, but they were just there to siphon the funds from people. There was a lot of that happened to projects, really good projects, really viable projects. So these projects have built some of the hardest things to build when it comes to marketing, which is a community. People who are fanatics about a brand, right? Like there's brands like Nike, there's brands like these big Apple. They have these huge followings. They've spent billions of dollars to build the fans that they have. And here come NFT projects, and you can get people who come into these NFT projects people were tattooing brands of NFT projects on their body, right? This is insane. This opportunity was here, but they didn't know how to deploy it with strategy. They didn't know how to use business systems to build longevity in the project. And so what I was trying to advocate after the giant boom and bust was go-to-market strategies, building out systems, building out teams, developing an actual product that your brand, your NFT project was powering some sort of product. You were solving a problem for people, you weren't just a fancy picture of an ape. You were a fancy picture of an ape that was the mascot and brand behind this other product. You found a problem that your community that needed solving, and you could solve it. You had the funds, you could develop a product that could then go out and get new customers and continue to generate revenue for the people, the stakeholders, right? I saw NFTs and Web3 as a new way of shaping business. It was a new way to organize business. It was community owned. Is a fractionalized ownership of a brand is what it was, and people got really hung up on the technology and the future. And, I love the technology. I love what it could be, but nobody really there's a very few brands that are executing right now on that, right? There's some brands that are still alive that will go on into the future because they decided to apply real business to it. They poured all the money they made back into building an actual business versus saying, hey, we sold this much and now what? There's a lot of artists who just didn't know what they were doing, and they burned their whole communities just because they didn't have the experience, right? They didn't know what to do. They weren't there yet. So I was really advocating for brands to use the money to build a business versus whatever they were doing, thinking that NFT markets would go up forever, right? Because they weren't, and we're seeing that they collapsed. The values completely collapsed. There's projects that are completely dead, but they were really viable communities, really good brands. They don't have a product. And so they're relying on prices, and the prices was speculation, and that's not sustainable.
So, excuse me. So at the end of the day, today's world in Web3 NFTs, the products and the projects are not where they were in the past. But it appears that with a lot of movement and community and awareness and probably lessons learned, there is a more viable, sustainable future. What ingredients do you think it's going to take to get us in the future in the manner that you visioned in the past?
It's a good question. I think, like I said, I think it means that these founders start getting educated, or they bring on people, consultants and people that have done this, have built businesses before, even in the non-Web3 space. You can use their knowledge and their skill sets. You have to upgrade their knowledge and teach them about the differences of Web3. But once they can grasp that, they can apply like real business sense and run your project like a business. Right? I'm talking about specifically NFT projects. There's Web3 brands that are like, Web3 applications that are different from just a straight up NFT project, which is like, when I say that, it's like a PFP project or something like that. The Web3 brands are trying to operate like a business, but they have their own issues. They have their own completely different issues that I've also had strong opinions on, whereas they're selling a product that nobody wants because they're using a technology that's really exciting, but they didn't actually like think about what's the problem you're solving. A lot of these Web3 brands or projects are run by developers. Developers are notoriously bad at marketing and sales. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, they're great at technology. They're great at being geniuses at what they do. But when it comes to, hey, did you build a product that's solving a real problem that people are going to pay for? No, you invested all this time and energy and effort in a technology that maybe you can use that technology and pair it with another piece of technology to actually solve a problem that's there that you could solve. But then also UI, UX, right? User experience, terrible, all the way around, awful, right? Until your user interface is as simple as something like Cash App, right? You're not going to get people outside of the space to use your application if it's too complicated. So there's that too.
So what's on your wish list? What's on your wish list right now? Where are you today? And what's on your wish list? What do you want to get involved with? And are you involved in any special projects that are close to your heart?
So the project's something that was close to my heart, which was never executed because the markets collapsed and things didn't work out. But we were going to use NFTs to community fund and basically use NFTs and crypto to fund public goods, right? So we were going to do a project where we literally took fractionalized ownership. We had people invest in this NFT project. We were going to buy Bitcoin mining machines. We're going to use these Bitcoin mining machines to fund the operations of a water project to provide clean water.
Really?
Right? So using blockchain, using NFTs to really actually make a difference in the physical world and prove it, right? So now using Bitcoin mining, that could have become sustainable funding for the operations of an NGO, right? So that was something that I still want to see happen, and it's something that is near to my heart. That this kind of been put on the back burner. It was called the Meta Water Project. Never came to be. I still have hope that we can do that at some point. Those are the types of things I would be really interested in getting involved with. Outside of that, my focus has shifted from being a full service agency to very more niche down, right? So, focusing on helping with messaging, getting crystal clear about messaging. And then the other part is getting people customers, right? That's really what everybody wants. And so that's really, I'm good at lead generation. I understand that side of things. And so, that's where I want to be when it comes to working with brands. The problem in the Web3 space, a lot of times is they have this startup mentality, which is nothing wrong with that. But a startup that doesn't have a product, right, that isn't making any sales yet, it's very like you have to get to like one, and then we can get to more. You know what I mean? And so it's like being very selective with who I'm working with is kind of where I'm at right now. That answers your question.
Yes, it does answer my question, because you've mentioned some things that have been very near and dear to my heart that really made me think about coming into this space. As you know, I'm new in this space, newer than some, but the connection for me was the motivation of others saying to me, having the background and the high level projects and understanding business, corporations, processes, systems, as you were saying, and then taking the time to get educated on the Web3 side from a high level, and in some ways from a very practical level. It helped me understand how this could be a benefit to society and different populations, and learning about being banked and unbanked and people needing identity and what's happening globally and shipping and supply and demand and the efficiencies. There's definitely a place here, but the people need to be aware, understand, and learn. So as I look at everything that you have mentioned, there's a lot that we have in common that really are near and dear to our heart, that you just don't want to walk away. You still want to be part of all hands on deck, and let's move this forward to improve the quality of life of others. So when I think about that, what is it that you would like to see, or what type of projects that you think should be picked back up that may have failed? What do you see for the future? Where do you want to go in the future with all the insight and experience that you have? Is there anything in mind that we're unaware of that you've got rolling around in the back of your head that you want to share?
So there's an opportunity for people with capital, people with money, who understand the space or understand the value of having a large community who is willing to buy anything that you sell, to come through and start purchasing and acquiring some of these brands, these NFT. These are IP. This is IP. This is intellectual property, right? You can come through and acquire these brands and then build a product behind this brand, and now you have an asset that you purchase for a low cost that comes with a community. right? You have to get the community on board. And it has to be aligned, value aligned with what that community stands for. But for example, like, you know, there's NFT projects, let's say, around that are these people that are around health and wellness, right? That they care deeply about spirituality and health and wellness. Well, that's a prime example of a brand that you can come through, acquire, build out actual business systems and build out a real product. And now you have something that's integrated with Web3. You have a community of people, because the other piece of this is that these big brands, they saw the NFT space, they saw Web3 as this giant money grab, but they didn't know what they were doing.
Oh.
And so you saw all of these massive brands with like egg on their face, right? They literally botched. I mean, brands like, I'm not even gonna, big brands, home name brands, just failing miserably in the NFT and Web3 space because they didn't bring anybody on from the Web and Web3 space. These people didn't have any clue. They thought, hey, we're a big brand, we got money and we can do this. No, it's different. It's very different. You have to have buy-in from your community. You can't just dictate from the top down what it's going to be. You know what I mean? That's how you get your community to abandon you. And so there's that aspect too, right? So these brands, they botched it. I think I'm going off track though here. Am I?
No, you're not going off track, because at the end of the day, it sounds like the brands and everybody needs to do a paradigm shift. Community is very important in the Web3 space, and not having the community to support and understanding the verification, the immutable, and the trust and the value, and how to incentivize or even utilize the smart contracts appropriately. They basically just bought the NFT and didn't know what to do with it. There really hadn't been any connection to a human being. They just really bought it as a collectible and didn't know what to do with it. And possibly that's lack of education, lack of awareness, and not really being insightful enough to recognize that you need to change the dynamics and your tactics in order to move the product, the process, and the people forward, which to me is a big culture shift. A lot of people don't understand that, and something decentralized and blockchain and tying it all together, if you really don't understand that area, which I didn't for a while, then you're really going to be lost, and it's going to be a waste of money. And like you said, a money grab. That's really what it ends up being. So as you look forward today and you move into the business world, I know you still have your marketing agency. You're not doing full service, but how can somebody really work with you, and how do you want to move forward with what you've learned and who you are today? What is your ideal project? I guess that's what I'm asking. What's your ideal project? What are you looking for?
So ideal project would be a brand, big-hearted brand that's doing something, making an impact in the lives of other people, right? So brands that really make a difference in other people's lives is where I want to work, right? That stuff lights me up. And so being able to help them to amplify their messaging, to get their messaging right, to tell the right stories that engage their most ideal audience, and then deploying that story and that messaging into whatever type of marketing you need, right? Whether it's paid advertisements, whether it's video production, scripts, reels, social media content, whatever the executable channel for marketing is, but you have to start with that core story. So, ideal clients or ideal projects would be those that are doing more than just selling, a product that doesn't affect people's lives, something that actually makes a difference for people. That could be a number of things, right? I'm not limiting it to, anything, but as long as that product is like making some sort of impact, that's ideal for me. If you're in the space of, like I said, I had this water project that was really a big deal to me. If you're using the technology to innovate and do something really interesting, I'm also interested in that kind of thing, where you're innovating and using this technology for something tangible in the world, making a real world difference, real world experiences, that kind of stuff. That also interests me. But as far as the days of like launching just an NFT project and you're going to sell out, I think that time is up. I think that time is up. Right. I don't think we're going to see that again for a while. If there's another bull run, maybe there's going to be a new injection of that. But I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of like long-term brands that are doing something and building things for the future.
So when you look at your projects and what you want to do in the future and the experience you've had in the past, do you do smart contracts? Do you hire developers? Do you have a service model? What is your model of business, and how have you been able to develop the needs beyond the NFT? You know, everything is riding on the smart contracts. How did you handle that?
So I didn't do the smart contracts ourselves. We would contract people that we trusted, people that had a track record with us, because that was another thing, right? You had this giant gap, this giant demand for smart contracts, not enough developers. These developers were getting super expensive if you're any good at what you did. And so then you had a lot of people who could just follow tutorials and say, hey, I can do that. But they really didn't like know the nuanced details of like security, something like where a contract would get hacked and a whole community would get rugged because the guy they hired wasn't an expert. He was just somebody who could follow a tutorial, who did a few things, and now he's, holding up the value of this, $5 million project, and there's an error in the code, and somebody exploited that who was smarter than them, and they siphoned all the money. So we only worked with people that were vetted, that we had worked with before on other projects, but they got increasingly expensive because they were really good at what they did. I'd anticipate now that there's probably more people who do it that are good at it and less demand, but there's more demand for like more complicated smart contracts. We're talking, because smart contracts is not just for NFT projects, right? We're talking about complicated use cases like insurance, like big business applications, right? Those guys are high dollar. And so, yes, to answer your question, I don't specifically do that. We would contract that out with people that we trusted. I haven't handled smart contracts in a while. That's not something that people have come to me in a long time. Really, what people have started coming to me with, or coming to me for, is clarity on their message, clarity on their marketing, and then lead generation. How do I get new people? How do I get more leads? How do I get customers in the door, right? It's Web3, NFTs together. I use them interchangeably, even though they're different. They thought that they could come in and reinvent business, but business still exists. You still need customers. You're calling them community, and they are community. And the way that you treat them is different. The way that the value that they hold in your organization is very different. But at the end of the day, it's just another word for customer, right? You can't treat them like you treated traditional customers, where you just deliver something and if you don't care what the outcome is, because you have to care what the outcome is for them. You have to deliver for them.
So then does that turn into some of the gamification that I've observed, or some of the incentives and rewards for the customers, and talking, working, gathering, sharing in the community in the Web3 space? Is that some of the differences?
Yeah. Yes, it is. If you can engage your community and provide them a value, they're going to stick around, right? Being in community is the value, right? Being seen, heard, felt, understood, these things they have a tangible value. They might have a monetary value, but they do, because people pay thousands of dollars to be in masterminds. People pay thousands of dollars to go to retreats, right? So there's tangibility to that aspect. But a lot of, like I said, it's just, the gamification is a good idea, and I have seen that working, giving people a reason to be there. Another thing I see is the gamification of work, right? Helping people who have knowledge of this space to gamify this in a way where they're getting experience and getting to work with other brands, right? There's an opportunity there, like a Web3 kind of Fiverr, or Web3, what is the other one? Upwork, right, within a Web3 community, because you're pairing brands that need help with people who have the knowledge and the abilities. So there's an opportunity to do that. And I've seen that done within some DAOs, and I've seen that done within some Discords, which is a really interesting use case. Bringing Web3 enabled people into the space of helping brands that don't have a clue with their community. So finding ways to utilize your community, giving them a value, and having an exchange outside of what they purchased from you initially is.
So if somebody wants to reach out to you, Metamango, and your experience in messaging and telling the stories that connect with the audience and getting leads and learning more about Web3 and how to message in that space appropriately. How do we reach you? How do they reach you?
Yeah, so you can go to metamango.io. It's my website. Right now, you're going to be greeted with a video. I'm going to teach you something. I'm going to teach you the framework that we use for messaging. And you can book a call and we can see if there's a fit to work together.
Can you tell us a little bit about the framework that you use?
Yes, so the framework is called the Story Brand Framework, and it's got by a guy named Donna Miller. He wrote the book called Building a Story Brand. And it's really a brilliant way to use storytelling to create a really, really clear message for your marketing. And it's using historical evidence of storytelling, and stories have been a way that humans have communicated for thousands of years that we innately understand and we're drawn to. And so there's 7 pieces to this framework. If you get all 7 pieces of this framework correct, it's the difference between loving a movie and hating a movie. It's also the difference. They've back tested this framework. You can predict elections. Who's going to win an election? Back tested. If they get all 7 parts right, they go on to win the election. If they ruin one of the 7 parts, they lose the election. Presidential election is what I'm talking about. So it's a very powerful framework to use. And so I help people to distill what those pieces are and then craft the message, a story basically that makes their customer the hero of the story, and them, the brand, are the guide, right? You're just the guide in the story, but your customer is the hero, and they're already on a journey. You're helping them to get what they want, right? And so if you can tell that story effectively, you can get people to really resonate with your message. And so that's why I start with that. I teach people, I give that away. Right. I used to charge thousands of dollars to teach people this and walk them through it. Now I'm giving it away because we have AI, right? We have AI on our backs right now. And so I'm evolving there, right? People can have all the knowledge, but what my side of things is if you want help with implementation, I can help you implement it. I can give you the knowledge for free, but what are you going to do with the knowledge? Right. So that's kind of my model right now. So I'm going to give you some of my best stuff up front for free. And if you like it, and if you do want to do something with it, then when you want to work with me, then we'll see what that looks like.
Well, this sounds like an exciting future with your background, the experience, the celebrities that you've worked with, the big brands that you've worked with, and everything in regards to storytelling, the messaging, and how to do it appropriately so you connect with the audience and get the leads. I think that's the magic formula that people are going to reach out and want to contact you. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. And once again, Pivoting to Web3, Shaping Tomorrow Together is going to be with you in the future, serving your needs and helping you understand Web3.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Pivoting to Web3 at pivotingtoweb3.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so that it gets to you with every episode that comes out. We have lots of great opportunities, limitations, and downward spirals being revealed by our guests. And thank you in advance for all your reviews and comments. I appreciate you so much. I look forward to serving you in the next week's episode.